G'day, ZiggyD here with some Path of Exile news. Forsaken Masters Patch 1.3 has been announced. We just got a massive teaser post full of cool information about the new patch, and it is a whopper. This is the patch that's coming alongside of the new 3-month challenge leagues, and although it's not the size of something like the Forsaken Masters expansion pack, it's way bigger than any other regular patch that we've had before, so lots of new content coming our way. So first up is the announcement of the 2 new 3-month challenge leagues, Torment and Bloodlines. Now, Torment is the softcore challenge league, and this features ghostly loot hoarding goblins. I mean ghost things that aren't goblins. Anyway, these guys will flee from you when you encounter them, and when if you manage to kill them, you'll get some nice loot from them apparently, and if they sort of flee into a pack of enemies, they can actually enhance and buff those enemies, making them more dangerous and making them drop more loot. It also says that they can possess essentially rare mobs and unique mobs, making them more dangerous and making them drop more loot as well. So this is a pretty interesting sounding mechanic because it's something that could potentially change the farming meta quite a bit. Say you find like a really nice pack of blue enemies or a really nice rare, or there's a unique monster or a boss on the map, you will try and, you know, find one of these ghostly goblin things and chase them into that pack so that they enhance it and make them drop a lot more loot. Of course, it depends on what sort of loot they drop and how this works, but I could see this being something that potentially changes the way characters actually farm, and that's an exciting and interesting new thing for the game. So I'm pretty interested in seeing how this plays out. Now, Bloodlines is the hardcore 3-month challenge league, and this is kind of similar to Nemesis League, if you guys remember back to that, but it's kind of an expanded concept on this idea of making monsters more complex and difficult to deal with. Now, I really liked Nemesis, so I'm pretty excited to see how this one plays out, but the way this one differs from Nemesis is that instead of buffing a singular rare mob, this buffs essentially packs, and it has interesting pack synergy sort of mechanics. So the teaser hints at things like enemies that are killed one by one slowly construct an animated guardian that you must then defeat, and other things like enemies that become immortal when they are near their slain brethren. So these sorts of things kind of hint that same Nemesis thing that I really liked about Nemesis, that you need to really think about and form tactics around engaging different types of enemies, things that you actually need to prepare for. Nemesis was my favorite hardcore league for that reason, that you really had to think about each of those engagements, and I'm hoping that this plays out the same again. So both of these sound like pretty strong mechanics, and it'll be very interesting to see how well they are executed, because I think most people feel that the last 3-month challenge leagues were a little bit of letdown in terms of their mechanics, so it'll be really nice to see if these ones are kind of hit their old stride again, like Nemesis did, and like Ambush did for the softcore league. So with that in mind, I'll probably be playing the Torment League this time around. I did play the Hardcore Challenge League in the last 3 months, and I said that if the mechanic was good, I will probably play the Softcore this one to sort of mix it up a bit. And this new Torment mechanic of these ghosts that, you know, go in and inhabit different packs, and the potential there for like a changed sort of farming style and meta is just kind of too tasty to pass up. It's a hard decision actually, because the Bloodlines League sounds so similar to Nemesis, which was one of my favorite leagues, so it might be something where I have to try out a bit of each, but that's not such a bad thing in the end. So that's me, but I'm kind of curious about what you guys will be playing. Let me know, guys, let me know. I'm curious to see what you guys are interested in out of those two. Seems like a tough decision. So next up, guys, PvP hype. Massive PvP announcements. Now, we kind of knew that something was going in the background for PvP. I know that Green Dude was working very closely with ZiggyD to work out some interesting new developments for PvP, and here they are. We now know what is happening. So a bunch of new stuff is coming for PvP. We're getting PvP tournaments, 3 different types of PvP modes, and a new PvP master named Leo Bloodmane, who gets his name from the way he would slice enemies' throats in the arena to form a mane of blood around them. Pretty wicked. But this guy is the arena master essentially, and he has his own hideout and his own crafting bench that will apparently give PvP specific mods. Not really sure what sort of things they could be, but they could open up some new and interesting metas in terms of PvP, and I'm sure that's something that especially low-level duelers and different PvP players will be very interested in seeing, what sort of things can come out of such a crafting bench. Now, the PvP support overall seems to be somewhat on the level of the racing support in the current game, so they're going pretty hard at this, guys, as this doesn't seem like a very half-assed thing. There's even going to be a PvP season with points accrued and unique alternate art items earned, just like in the race season. Now, we're going to be getting 3 PvP modes. They're going to be Free-for-All in San Arena, where you try and rack up as many kills as you can, and when you die, you move into a different arena, so there's some sort of interesting mechanic there. There's going to be Blitz tournaments, which are essentially timed tournaments where you have to get as many wins as quickly as possible. ZiggyD talked about this in the past, and the idea was that it would stop people from playing very kind of like builds where you hang back and hide and have a massive standoff, because if you're playing like a very defensive build like that, then you're probably not going to be able to get through many matches in the allotted time. So that's an interesting sort of mechanic that's going to promote very fast, furious PvP matches. And then the final one is going to be Swiss tournaments, where essentially it's, you know, the strongest players. It's going to be the most sort of competitive game mode, so for the more serious PvPers. So 3 interesting new modes there that should, you know, interest a pretty wide variety of players, from, you know, casual PvPers to, in the Swiss tournaments, the more advanced and more serious and dedicated PvPers. So pretty interesting stuff. Now, PvP-only characters are also coming to the game. This is a level 28 character that you can get for low-level dueling, just instantly at level 28. You don't actually need to level them up. So the way this works is that they are not available for use in PvE. They can only be used in PvP tournaments and events, and you still have to farm your gear in PvE as per usual on your other characters. It's a pretty nice addition though, because it means it's going to be very easy for new people to get into PvP. There's no like, oh, I got to level a character, I can't be bothered. You know, the tournament's like in 15 minutes, I'm not going to have time to level up a character and get them ready. This will allow you to sort of, you know, get that character without that sort of barrier. And it's also going to make it easy to try a bunch of new builds. You know, you got the duelist build in mind, you make your duelist, and, you know, then you're like, oh, if I change just a few things, you know, I have to change, kind of going to change like 14 points here. It's going to cost too much, not going to worry about it. This time you can just get another free character at level 28. So this seems like a pretty cool mechanic, and just a nice little extra thing to make PvP a little bit easier to get into. Now, this next part is pretty insane. There are coming in this patch 8 new skill gems, 1 support gem, 7 skill gems, and 25 new unique items with this patch, guys. What? So massive. So we did get some teasers on some of the gems. No really teasers on the uniques apart from some unique art in the post there. But the teasers on the gems so far are that there's going to be 3 counterattack melee skills that allow you to build reactive melee characters. So this is something that people have kind of talked about in the past, and something that they felt like they needed for melee characters to become, you know, to feel really good and to become, you know, more viable. This sounds very interesting. I don't know what else to say about this, but counterattack based skills sounds very interesting and very cool in terms of melee. Like, it makes a lot of sense in terms of the melee theming, and it's also something I haven't really seen that much of in action RPGs, so it'll be very interesting to see how these ones play out and how they're used, and you know, how strong and viable they are and what sort of characters you're able to build with them. Next up, we have 2 new bow skills. We have the kind of hinted at bow movement skill, which allows you to essentially quickly move to a location, leaving a decoy where you were. Now, there's another second skill tied in with this one loosely, in that it's a one that allows you to fire a decoy anywhere you want. Now, the interesting part about these 2 skills is that people watching you won't know which is which. Now, I don't know, probably if you're, you know, in a team with someone, they're probably going to know, but if you're in PvP fighting against someone, and maybe it has some sort of uses in PvE, I'm not exactly sure, but essentially it's a skill that will allow you to be a little bit more elusive and a little bit more tricky with your bow skills, with your bow characters, I should say. So pretty interesting to see that one. And then next up we have a new lightning melee skill themed for the Templar early game. Now, we already have Lightning Strike, so not exactly sure how this one's going to work, but if you guys like your Thor builds, then it could be one to keep an eye out for. And then finally, we have an Area of Effect one skill that was shown in a teaser video a little while ago. There's no name given for this one yet, but it kind of looks like a cross between Tornado Shot and Molten Strike. Essentially, you fire a projectile that hits enemies and then fires out a bunch of small explosions. This skill looks like it's going to be very strong, guys. If it is anything like a combination between Tornado Shot and Molten Strike, then it's going to be strong, because both of those skills are excellent, and maybe a fusing of those 2 skills is even more excellent. But looks really cool, and instantly I'm kind of like, well, I might be playing a Wand character in the new leagues, even though we got our bow movement skill, and I said, if we get a bow movement skill, I'm going to play a bow character. That Wand skill just looks super radass, but badass. Now, there was also a teaser video in the post that shows, you know, a few things. I didn't really get too much major out of it, but the big thing that people are hyping on is that in the video, very briefly shown, was an icon on the toolbar, and they always slip these little sneaky things in there. It was an icon on the toolbar that was the old phase run icon. Now, for those of you guys who weren't around in, I think it was closed beta or phase run was in there. Phase run was, or it might have been open beta, but anyway, phase run was a melee skill that allowed you, any character, pretty much everyone used it, even not melee characters, but essentially it allowed you to get a boost of speed, and then your next melee hit would deal a bunch of extra damage. Now, it was removed from the game because everyone used it. It was a movement skill, gave a bunch of extra move speed, so it made sense for everyone to use it, even if they weren't melee. And ZiggyD didn't really like that very much, that everyone felt like it was a mandatory skill, and I kind of agree with them. It was a bit of a pain in the ass. But nonetheless, phase run holds a very special place in all of our hearts who were playing the game back then. And even though we now have Quicksilvers, which have essentially taken over that role, it's still kind of interesting to think about the idea of phase run potentially coming back. So this could be phase run's return, its glorious return. I don't know. ZiggyD have said that they didn't really plan on bringing back phase run, so that would be a little bit surprising. The alternative is that they could have just reused the icon for one of the new bow skills or something like that, but I don't know, that seems a bit unlikely too, so really no idea what's going to happen with that. Now, the final thing is we are getting passive skill tree overhauls for the Duelist, Templar, and Marauder. Now, the Shadow and Witch and Ranger overhauls all went really well. Everyone loves them. I think they did a great job on those tree redesigns. And if the Templar and Duelist especially are getting that sort of same treatment there, I think it's going to be very good for the game. The Duelist especially is really lacking diversity, and this Templar start area just felt so archaic, so it's going to be really nice to have that overhaul. Now, tied in with this, of course, is at the start of these new leagues, everyone will be getting a passive skill tree reset. So if you had some old characters you want to jump on and try out some new builds on, then you'll be able to. So anyway, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this summary. Again, let me know what league you're planning on playing in the next challenge leagues and any other thoughts you have about this upcoming patch. Very, very hyped, guys. All aboard the hype train. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.